Most people are still using AI like this. It types, you copy, you paste, and you iterate. That's a conversation. But while you're busy typing prompts, Anthropic quietly released something that is an entirely different category. It's the first version of an actual AI teammate that you can use for work, for your business. This is Claude Cowork. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you 10 things that Claude Cowork covers and that you can do to accelerate your business or deliver better work for your clients that nobody else is covering. One of the first things that we're going to do, and this is really what blew me away, is that it can do so many tasks, use so many agents at once. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, do some market analysis for construction and design and use a bunch of sub-agents to do this in parallel. And I want it to be about. Now you can see it's already asking me a bunch of questions based off of how it knows me and the companies that I work with. It will ask me, is that for me internally, construction and design build prospects, Anthropic partnership pitch, or investor board level brief? So let's say construction and design build prospects. What depth and format do you want? Executive, comprehensive pitch deck. Why don't we do a one pager? Residential, commercial, let's do that. Let's go. Concrete use cases and workflows, market sizing, competitive go-to-market positioning. That's cool. This is how it really gets way more granular. You might have noticed that you can do this with custom GPTs too, and other AI models will ask you, but Claude Cowork goes really deep and it wants to deliver great work. The only way it can deliver great work is if it asks you the right questions, and it will do all of these tasks that it defines here in parallel. So here it's spinning up 10 different tools. These could be tools like web research and other internal tools that we use. And I'll let you know exactly how we can build our own tools here as well. So here it's doing a bunch of web research and it's finding how we can build this report. If we wanted to go more into depth and more into detail, so let's say, for example, we want to put specific things related to SEO, we could go and build our own tool. And that is already the second feature that I want to talk about, because this is something that delivers so much better output than if you're just chatting with an agent, and you can ask it to ask you a bunch of deeper questions, but Claude Cowork will do this on its own. And you can come in here, you can reject things, you can talk to it, you can say, no, I'd like to have it more like this and like that. And the output is just so much superior if you go and you give it details on what you're trying to do specifically, because then it will get it exactly right. And this is the one feature that should kill every what if AI goes rogue fear that you might have, because you're literally telling it exactly what to do and it will execute it in a specific sandboxed environment. It also teaches you something valuable about how to get better outputs when you're using AI. So by reading Claude Cowork's plans, you learn to delegate better and you learn to articulate the problem that you're trying to solve in a very clear way. And you never come back to a desktop that's being completely wiped just because AI decided to go rogue. Now you can see, based off of my little prompt, and 5 minutes later, it gave me a very detailed brief on the construction industry and design build industry that it researched, and it came up with all of these use cases. So for example, what Cowork actually does by segment. So here we can talk about notes and emails, material kickoff, 4 to 6 hours per complex remodel, change order tracking, maybe all those emails that you need to keep track of, and the homeowner warranty pack. There's a bunch of different use cases here that are relevant for real world design build and construction use cases. There's also more for commercial and specialty trades. So for example, T&M invoicing and stuff like that. And there's a lot more. So why not Procar, Builder Trend, or ChatGPT? And then it will explain how much it costs, what the issue is, and the math for a 10-person residential firm, 5 seats, 10 hours a week, and so on, how much you can save and how much your ROI is. And this is a very simple use case. Obviously, we could go way more into depth and we could say, okay, this is exactly what I want to show. This is what I want to have. We could also say, hey, we want it to build out 10 slides specifically for this, but you'll see the beauty of this, right? If you were in ChatGPT and you asked it to prepare something like this, it might do something similar, but then it will be like, okay, is that good? Do you want me to refine it? Here are 3 more suggestions. However, this output is literally something you could send to a client. It says here, prepared by Flying Media, which is the company name, and it has all the sources in here. So it knows my company, it knows to cite sources and not just make up shit. And it's all in here. This could have been prepared by somebody in my team for this specifically, okay? And that's what makes it so powerful, is the outputs here can literally be trusted. And I'm not saying to trust it blindly and just send everything out, but I'm saying it gets it right 80 to 90% of the time for something simple. Now, obviously this 5-minute one-shot prompt about the Claude Cowork industry analysis is not just the only output that we want. And I'm going to show you in the next step how we can iterate and make this so much better. I gave it access to this folder, and this is where everything comes together in Claude Cowork, because this is the environment that I share with it, and I say, hey, you can operate within here. And then it will go and it will put its research here, which it put in this MD file that you can open up, and it will be like, hey, this is everything I found about the construction market and my sources and so on. And it also put the PDF in here, right, that we can open up here. If I put other things into this folder, then it will use that as context. Let's say, for example, I have invoices or past client work, or I worked with a client on, that specifically. I could put that information in here in this folder, and then it will go and use that for another task. So now let's assume we're using Claude Cowork to write ad copy for our clients. Then we could come in here and we could say, okay, here's everything about the client. Here are their testimonials and case studies. Here's some other ad copy reference styles that we're using for this. Here's a bunch of information on how we run ads, what is important, what is not, hooks. Put it all into the folder and say, okay, everything that's in this folder is used to write better ad copy. Now we'd like you to write ads in this same style. And maybe in the folder you have instructions as well, telling it exactly what to do. So this is how you write the ad copy. This is the second step. The third step, go ahead and execute it on it now. It's going to be so much better. I'm going to show you right now. If you've been using ChatGPT or Claude in the chat bar a lot, you've probably noticed one of the annoying skills, right? That every time you come to it, it forgets completely who you are and what you do and everything else. They've been trying to fix this a lot with memory and persistent files. However, within Claude Cowork, you have a lot of options to customize that. The first customization is obviously the skills, and I'll talk more about these in a second because it kind of gets a little bit more complex. However, before the skills, you also have the memory option. So if you come in here and you go to settings and you come into Claude Cowork and you have here global instructions. As you can see, I have a bunch of guest passes. I don't know, maybe it's useful to someone. I don't think I make any money off this. Oh, you'll get 10. Share a friend. All right, so if you want, there's a link. Maybe it's useful. I'll put it down in the description. But really, if you come here and you type in here what you want, you can also build this using Claude Cowork. So what I would suggest is probably the best way to go about this, and this is how I have it set up within Claude Code, is you come in here and you can open a chat window, say new chat, and then we can say, I'd like you to ask me a bunch of questions on how I run my business, about my clients, about me, about everything that I do, so that we can put this into the global instructions of Claude Cowork in a condensed way, so that every time I open up a new session, you already have a lot of information about me, how I operate, and how you can be most helpful to me and my organizations. Now, with something like this, it will get very sophisticated, and it will probably ask me a bunch of questions related to my businesses, my clients, and all of the work that I do, which I will be able to then take that output and put it into Claude Cowork so that every time the outputs are so much better. Just by putting this into this prompt, and I'll leave this prompt in the description below, it already mentioned it knows a lot about me and the businesses that I run, and it has a bunch of more questions that I can answer here. So what is the current state, focus, team, how I want Claude to behave, full stack and systems, and so on. It's important that you don't go into too much depth, and there's other ways to do this. In fact, I made an entire video on how to use Obsidian as well, and I'm gonna link that up here. So there's other ways to really, if you're Claude Cowork super user, to really harness all of the data you have. So you need to be careful that you don't have too much here, but as much as you can, go into as much detail as possible, and then you copy paste that into your settings, which will give you so much better outputs already to begin with. I guess we're diving into the part that really everyone was waiting for. It is skills. If you've been using Claude Cowork or Code, or you're just here starting out, you've probably heard a lot about skills. If you come here to settings and then you go to connectors, you have a bunch of different connectors. Now you can see I only have a few configured because, again, all of these connectors, they use a lot of your context, and once you have them turned on, you should actually be using them. So I'll get into one method that allows you to fix that. in a second on how you can use those connectors for specific workflows. Now, in here, you can come and you can browse connectors. So you can look for a bunch of different data sources. So for example, if you use Salesforce connectors like Supermetrics, Coupler, which you can connect all of the data with. There's a lot of interconnectors as well that you can use, and you'll find everything from Gmail to Google Drive, HubSpot, and there's new connectors that are being added every single day. Like for example, Fathom, I built a bunch of custom connectors there. Now there is the connector that is available as well. HubSpot, Figma, Zoom. You can see from all of the popular tools that we use, there's probably a connector built out and you can use that. So for example, for ClickUp, if you use it for project management, there's really everything that you can connect with these tools directly. So imagine these connectors are just a direct integration from Claude Cowork into that tool. If you connect one of these connectors, you also need to probably use it for whatever skill you're trying to do. This is where it gets useful in packaging these connectors in a specific skill. And a skill, imagine a skill being something like an employee. You have an employee that does a specific workflow. Let's assume you run a marketing agency and you have an employee doing some kind of SEO-based workflow. Could be keyword research, could be writing articles, and so on, right? There might be several tasks that one employee does. So now assume you take the entire workflow and you package it into a skill. This would be over here. So now there is also this very popular skill creator, which allows you to do a skill. And we're going to do so together right now. We can come over here, can type into Claude Cowork and say, use the skill creator and help me create a skill to go research people that could be interested in talking about these topics like Claude Cowork specifically to their industry, so that we can hop on a podcast and exchange ideas about everything that is possible when using Claude Cowork. And I'd like you to research these people, and then I'd like to use a Gmail or something like that to reach out to them. And for researching them, I'd like to use something like Clay. So I'd like to connect with Clay there, and then I'd like to email all of these people. What's really cool about Claude Cowork is you can naturally give it all the information that you're looking to do. So I'm saying use the skill creator and it will know what to do. And then it will go about and it will probably allow me to connect things like Clay and other things. Let's see what it can do with this just by giving it this prompt right here. Now you can see how every time I ask it to do something, it will go grab its planning skill and it will say, hey, what is it that you're actually looking to do? Who am I trying to reach out to? And then I can say, I want to reach out to all of these people, use Clay MCP. There we go. And then I will tell it exactly what I want it to do. And then it will go about and figure out how to do that. Once we've done this one time and we know how to do it, we can package it into a skill and we can give that skill all the abilities and all the tools that it needs to do that. So imagine your employee that you give access to some kind of SEO tools, right? Like Ahrefs or data for SEO. You would go and you would say, okay, you are a skill, and now it will go and it will use that. So for example, now it's doing connector research, right? And it's finding, oh, it has a connector for Clay. Cool. Why don't we use that to actually connect to Clay? It created this entire skill for me. So now I have the podcast guest outreach skill, right? That will go and it will find people and it tells me what else I need to do. So maybe I needed to connect Clay, which I did now. And then what's inside the skill. So here it wraps that all up. So I could go look at this specifically. This is just like an SOP that you would know for this employee that will do the podcast guest outreach. This is what I'm looking for. This is my target. This is my ICP, the agency owners, AI productivity, phase 1, do this, do that, do that. Now that I have all of this, it knows what to do and I can go ahead and save this skill and go try it. And so there again, it will ask me a bunch of questions to get my task really clear. And then it will go out and it will use whatever tools we define. Like for example, it will figure out, oh, I want to do some research on LinkedIn or on the internet or on YouTube, right? And you could give it a bunch of other tools and say, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? You can take this to a completely next level. I would always suggest thinking about how would you do it manually. If you were not using Claude Code, if you were just, doing this manually, what would you do? You would look at the internet, you would look at YouTube. Where would you find these people that you want to invite on your podcast? By the way, if this is you, just comment below and we can jump on a conversation and talk about how Claude Code or Claude Cowork specifically fits into your business and how it can be more useful for your business. And I'd love to chat with you about it if you're using Claude Cowork in a specific niche. Now, I would do this manually and then figure out, okay, well, these are the steps that we're doing, and then find the different tools and skills that you need to put into Cowork. So for example, if you're looking for people on LinkedIn, maybe there's some kind of LinkedIn tool that you can use. Like there's a tool called Appify that will allow you to scrape things like LinkedIn or YouTube and so on. And then you can use something like Appify and connect it to Claude Cowork. You will see you have an Appify connector. So now we could install Appify and connect to Appify directly and go and scrape all of our LinkedIn influencers or people that we want to connect with. Then we could use something like Clay to enrich the data and the emails. And then we could use something like Gmail to go and send out 20 emails a day. Now, all of this is obviously specific to your use case. Now, if you're looking for podcast guests, this might be a good workflow. If you're looking for clients, maybe same. However, there's many different ways that you can use this. Think about your current workflows in your business and what you're doing today and what you'd like to automate or systematize. We'll go on to the next beautiful thing that Claude Cowork does. And this is something they recently released, which is called scheduled tasks. I would not recommend going into scheduled tasks if you've never done any of this before, because scheduled tasks is only useful once you've figured out a workflow that is working. Let's assume we've now perfected our LinkedIn podcast guest outreach workflow. And every day it will go find 10 new business owners within a specific niche. And we've perfected that outreach message and the personalization and all of the tools that it uses to get that done. We could come in here into the scheduled tasks and say, hey, every day I want you to do outreach and reach out to 10 different podcast guests. We could just select the skill that we have. We could have here podcast guest outreach, right in here what we'd like to do. And we can say, okay, the frequency is daily, weekdays, or whenever we want to run the skill. This will now allow us to run this on autopilot. Don't get this confused with manage agents, which is again something else that I'll talk about more as well. But in here, this is already good because you're probably going to be on your computer every day, probably something you can do in parallel with whatever you're doing on your computer. And then you can come in here and it will do this automatically, put 10 email drafts in your Gmail that you can just click send and we're done. Now, once we've gotten to scheduling tasks and you're telling me, Sebastian, I'm not gonna be on my computer every day because I wanna be at the beach, completely legitimate. You can come here now. They just also released a new feature called Dispatch, which allows you again to use your computer at the beach on your phone. So you come in here, you select Dispatch. And again, I would not recommend trying out new things from scratch using Dispatch because it will get things wrong. It will not know here whatever things will break. What I would recommend you do is you figure things out on your computer. So specific workflow. I want to reach out to 10 podcast guests every single day and invite them onto my show. Then you define all of the tools and everything that you need to accomplish that. Number 3, you then package it into a skill with those specific tools and put it into a plugin. We didn't even talk about plugins, but plugins is just packaging multiple skills into one process, right? So you could say, okay, go do research and then enrich these people with Clay and then put them into Gmail. So those are 3 separate workflows that you could put into 3 separate skills and package them all into the plugin, which you call podcast guest outreach. Now, once you've done that and you can rely on that specifically, you can just use something like Dispatch, be on your mobile and be like, hey, today I'd like to find 50 people, use the podcast guest outreach skill and, look for these people specifically, right? Just adjust it a little bit, change it a little bit. Works best for that instead of being on your phone and saying, I'd like to research and build this entire app from scratch, which you can obviously do, and I've done it as well, but I would always recommend staying within these parameters because that's where Claude Cowork really does its best. If you don't want to build your own plugin, you can come here and browse plugins, and it will give you a bunch of hand-picked completed plugins, like for example, marketing, which gives you a bunch of different marketing skills where you can review your brand. You could also come and download this and then customize it to your need. Here you have a design skill, which will allow you to look at your UX, UI, your copy, and so on. And you can see it uses all of these different connectors like Slack, Figma, Asana, Atlassian, and so on. Now, maybe some of these connectors will be overkill and you can just kick them out again. Others might be good. Here you go. You come in here, you have your connectors, your skills, and finally your plugins. Now, how can we make the most of something like Claude Cowork? Now, obviously we can build a bunch of fancy things, or what I like to use it for if you're running a business or even within your job, for your department, for your KPIs, it makes sense to look at like real world use cases, how Claude Cowork can absolutely accelerate your life and your business or, within your job, your role, whatever you may be doing. For example, we're all looking at metrics. If we're running our own business or if we're doing it within a larger organization, we probably need to be on top of our metrics, our KPIs. So you log into Stripe, you log into HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever it might be, how many deals, how many pipeline, how many invoices, and you want to really understand those numbers and break them down. So the easiest thing you can do is come into Cowork, build that out, say, these are all the tools that we use for the metrics, or, go get the metrics here, and then put them, package them together into different skills in a plugin. And then you can go and schedule that in the scheduled tasks and say, hey, every Monday morning, go pull all of these things, put them into a Google Sheet, do a beautiful presentation for me and my team, and put that together. Now, you've probably heard some horror stories on this as well, like people just operating with wrong metrics. The way you do that is by putting very specific harnesses in place. The word harness is used a lot within the AI, especially for developers and coders. It basically just means keeping your AI in check. So for example, if you would plan a skill like this and this scheduled task, you would make sure that you have the harness in place. That could look something like this. If you log into Facebook, you use the Facebook API and you pull the ads from this ad account, and you give me the metrics. And now you tell it specifically, you're only to use these metrics in JSON format only from the past week, and you put it in there specifically. And you keep those harnesses very strong and secure so that you don't just let it invent some kind of metrics. You say every time you use metrics, you only use metrics from Meta, you only use metrics from Google, and you only use metrics from Stripe. And then it will know specifically, I use that connector, like there's a connector for Stripe, I connect to Stripe, I grab the metrics and I put them into the presentation or into the database, and I send them to you on Monday morning. Another great use case could be like you want to keep up to date with content or with products, services, whatever it may be, and you want to look at what your competitors are doing. So you could define 10 competitors, maybe you have them ready, and you say, hey, go and look at all of these websites and look if they're changing their pricing, feature, messaging, whatever it may be, and give me that on a weekly basis. You can even automate all of that with AI and say, go research all of my competitors, but probably you already have a lot of that and you can just get a weekly report. Who knows? Maybe you're right now in your job and you want to impress your management, your coworkers, and you can have this report on, hey, this is what everyone else is doing. This is where we could adapt. You can even put suggestions there that make this more powerful. What about a content repurposing engine? Right now, we're doing a YouTube video. You'll probably see this as well on Instagram, on X. I'm gonna use this content to repurpose it in other places. So same for you, if you're doing content somewhere, like you're posting something on LinkedIn, you might wanna post it somewhere else, create a newsletter, create shorts with it, whatever it may be. Manually, this is done piece by piece. And now with Cowork, you can come in and schedule it. You could say, every time I do X on this platform, I want you to do Y and Z. The last use case I think is probably the most interesting one. It's exactly what we just did before with the podcast guest outreach, right? You could use something like Clay and always enrich those leads. So let's say, for example, you have a running business and you get in leads every day from Instagram, from Facebook ads, whatever it may be. You get an email, you get an Instagram lead, something like that. You could take these leads and automatically push them into Claude Cowork every single day, right? Whenever they come in, you connect the connector, the MCP, you go grab those leads and you go enrich them within Clay. And then Clay returns maybe their LinkedIn profile, maybe their full address, whatever it may be. And you can then reach out to these people via some other method. Maybe you want to send them a postcard. Maybe you want to reach out to them, go visit their website and send them something that is broken. Really enrich those follow-ups. That's something you can completely automate with Claude Cowork. And finally, probably the last use case, if you're somewhat within finance or you run your own business, you know how important it is to increase your cash flow and get that up to check. It's really easy to connect to something like Stripe, or even your banking. You might be worried, but you can always give it read-only access. Even if you connect it to your accounting software and it gets read-only access, it cannot do anything damaging. It only has access to, oh, these 10 people did not pay yet. And then we could automate a completely automated follow-up. We'll draft it into your Gmail, or it will prepare it for your controller to send automatically to them, and then it will be done. You don't have to do the dirty work. You can just click send, get emotionally detached from all of these receivables, make sure you collect. Now you can see the beauty of Claude Cowork. While I was explaining that in this video, it completely finished these operations. It found a bunch of creators and people within industry, and it went and enriched these creators, and it created a database that I can now reach out to these, right? Now I can go, it will keep asking me questions if I need. How do you want me to handle industry operators? Let's go. And for the creator list, it's not that many, and it will just go and enrich these people, and then it will go prepare the drafts for them. Now, obviously, you have a little bit of back and forth. It will ask you more questions, but in the end, once you've done this once or twice, it will know exactly what you want, how you want it, and you can just schedule it and repeat it on a daily basis. Okay, so if any of this unlocked something for you, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments what you want to see next. I'm gonna show you a lot of deep agent workflows and a lot of interesting things that you can automate and create where you can save time, make more money, and learn AI before it's too late. See you in the next one.